I'm J.R. Church. Welcome to today's analysis of the news. Do you remember the four horsemen of the apocalypse? Listen to the description of horse number 3. And when he had opened the third seal, I heard a third beast say, "Come and see." And I beheld, and lo, a black horse, and he that sat on him had a pair of balances in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts say, "A measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine." This is control of the world's food supply. Well, do we see anything on the horizon about control of the world's food supply? I'm glad you asked. Here's an article that says, "Lose your property for growing food." House Resolution 875, or the Food Safety Modernization Act of 2009, was introduced by a Democrat from Connecticut, Rosa DeLauro, in February. Now here's the kicker. Her husband, Stanley Greenberg, works for Monsanto. The world's leading producer of genetically engineered seeds. Yes, Monsanto, foremost among the seed companies, has been busily patenting all the seeds in the world, making a little change here, a little change there, and effectively or intentionally trying to get rid of all natural seeds so that everyone will have to buy their genetically enhanced seeds for which they have a patent. Therefore, nobody can take a seed from last year's crop and grow next year's crop. Now, DeLauro's Act has 39 co-sponsors and was referred to in the House Agriculture Committee on February 4th. It called for the creation of a Food Safety Administration to allow the government to regulate food production at all levels. That means you cannot have a garden in your backyard without the government telling you how you can plant and how you can produce your vegetables. Well, it goes on to say that even mandates property seizure and fines up to $1 million per offense, and criminal prosecution for producers, manufacturers, and distributors who failed to comply with their regulations. Now, Michael Olson, host of the Food Chain Radio Show and author of a book called Metro Farm, said that the government should focus on regulating food production in countries such as China and Mexico rather than burdening small and organic farmers in the United States with overreaching regulations. He said, quote, "We need somebody to watch over us when we're eating food that comes from thousands of miles away. We need some help there," he said, "but when food comes from our neighbors or from farmers who we know, we don't need all those rules. If your neighbor sells you something that's bad and you get sick, you're going to take care of it. That'll be the end of it. It regulates itself." The legislation would establish the Food Safety Administration within the Department of Health and Human Services to protect the public health by preventing food-borne illnesses, ensuring safety of foods, etc., etc. Well, you know that the various problems with salmonella and botulism and what have you over the past few years have been played up really big in the news. And of course, it's all because the food growers, that is those who make the seeds like Monsanto, want people to know that they are out to protect you. But when it comes down to it, the Bible says that there will be a black horse one of these days. That is a government agency, world government agency, probably sponsored by the UN, that will govern the measure of wheat for a day's wages, 3 measures of barley for a day's wages, and the oil and the wine. They will control food production around the world. No wonder when the fourth horseman comes, it says a fourth part of the earth will be killed with hunger. There it is. This, then, is more important than you might think on the surface. I mean, it may look to you like it's just another government intervention with the big farmers? No, it's with the little farmers that the problem lies. Olson believes that the regulations could create unjustifiable financial hardships for small farmers and run them out of business. He said, quote, "That is often the purpose of rules and regulations, to get rid of your competition." He said, quote, "Only people who are very, very large can afford to comply. They can hire one person to do all the paperwork. There's a specialization of labor there. And when you are very small, you can't afford to do all those things." And he said, it's frightening what could happen with good intentions. He said, it's probably the most radical notions on the face of the earth, but local agriculture doesn't need government because it takes care of itself. And along with the blogosphere, here are a few comments. Quote, "Government is trying to take total control, nationalize everything, disarm the populace, control food, etc. We see a formation of a total police state." Another comment says, "If you're starving, no number of guns will enable you to stay free." That's the whole idea behind this legislation. He who controls the food really makes the rules. And one more comment, "The government is terrified of the tax loss." Imagine all of the tax dollars lost if people actually grew their own vegetables. Imagine if people actually coordinated their efforts with family, friends, and neighbors. People could be in no time eating for the price of their own effort. Oh, the horror of it all. The last thing the government wants is for us to be self-sufficient. Well, I must tell you that even though it may sound insignificant, it is one of the most important pieces of legislation to come to Washington. The sad thing is, the husband of the congresswoman who is promoting all of this works for Monsanto. Wow. Let's keep it in the family, huh? I'm J.R. Church. We'll see you again tomorrow with our analysis of the news.